Good morning, Trinidad and Tobago. Good morning to all of you loyal listeners of the street, 919 FM. Thank you for choosing the street as your frequency of choice this Sunday morning as we head up to the rest of the morning drive time to 1 o'clock. So you're tuned into Cooking with Dominic Romain on a Sunday. I am, of course, your host, Dominic. So let me say good morning to all of the folks who are tuning in on the social media platforms, Facebook and YouTube. Good morning to Mr. and Mrs. Regis, Mr. and Mrs. Giuseppe. Good morning, Mr. and Mrs. Primus. Angie, morning. Good morning to Mother Tunapuna Mano. So all of my Allisons, Allison Samuel, Allison Rojas, Allison Haynes, good morning to all of you. Arlene Lewis, good morning. Let me just check something here. Right. To my good friend Louise Mathura, good morning to you. Patsy Edwards, Nicole Caesar, good morning, guys. Gemma, morning to Zena as well. Mr. Porter Spain, good morning to you. Brian, morning. Right, all right, let me see if I get this thing here, right. So, Carl Myers, good morning. Hayden Thomas, Lennox McEwen, Natalie Farrier, good morning. Judy King, Jennifer Dorset, who else is there? To all of the guys who are now logging on, good morning to you. All right, let me just get this here. All right. So it is now 11:15 on this day, 13th day of November. 2022 is almost a close. Marcia and Nigel, good morning, His Excellency. Right. Alright, just give me 1 second here, folks. Let me just find what I wanted to touch on today. Right. So many things to talk about, right? And we just don't have enough time on a Sunday. But right, let me just pull this up here. So I wanted to touch this morning, as I told you all, I want to play a back in times this morning for the benefit of Rudal Munilal, the pussycat of Oropouche. Likes to fancy himself as the lion of Oropouche, but he's only a lion when he's within the territorial borders of Oropouche, or from the time he steps out, he's a kitten, right? So, last week Sunday, he was chosen clown for the Sunday morning waste of time press conference, where they usually get half a question, at best 1.5 questions, from the members of the media. Every week they're wasting the media's time. I don't know if it is that they provide refreshments in order to encourage the media to come out and cover that foolishness. So, one of the many things that he raised last week was what he claimed was the skyrocketing cost of the Prime Minister's residence in Tobago, right? And I saw he posted on his Facebook page some 6 days ago, probe. 63 million cost. Munilal price skyrocketed from 25 million to 63 million. Oropouche East Member of Parliament Dr. Rudal Munilal is calling for an independent public inquiry into the cost of refurbishing the Prime Minister's residence in Tobago, saying yesterday that the project went from 25 million to 63. Munilal said the cost overruns had been confirmed by the UDCOT and called the increase scandalous. Speaking at the UNC's weekly Sunday media briefing, Munilal questioned the government's use of taxpayers' money and asked how much had been paid by UDCOT so far. Munilal also claimed opposition leader Kamla Persad-Bissessa as Prime Minister once vetoed the same project because the cost was then 20 million. Munilal was Housing Minister and Line Minister for UDCOT for some 5 years under the PP. He said the issue of the PM's residence in Tobago would be raised in the UNC's Monday night forum. Munilal said the figures had been confirmed by UDCOT. And when the state agency first proposed the project under the present government, the cost was listed as 25 million. He said this was noted by the opposition, but the increased cost of goods and services were also factored. However, Munilal said Dr. Rowley was paranoid about fixing it because that was the hideaway. And today, UDCOT confirmed the cost for the Prime Minister's Tobago residence is now in the vicinity of 63 million. He said UDCOT was certified to pay 48 million and 15.54 million was unpaid. He said the opposition was calling for an independent public inquiry into the issue as the cost was too much for a second residence, and the diplomatic centre in St. Anne's, Port of Spain was the Prime Minister's official residence. He said this was another scandal and that the contractors for the project had to be made public. Prime Minister Dr. Kilrawley, on completion of the repairs, stated that they existed for the first time an appropriate residence. And anyway, so what is of note is that Dr. Rowley would have responded to this with due dispatch. So that I think it was Sunday evening, and the news, that the Prime Minister would have issued a statement based on the information that he got from the same Uricot that Munilal claimed he got the information from, indicating that it did not cost 63 million, but in fact it was 37 million, right? And he indicated again, this was typical Rudal Munilal, spreading lies, misinformation, propaganda. So after Munilal would have made this claim on Sunday morning, the Prime Minister would have responded, I think, Sunday night. That didn't stop the misleader of the opposition from going on the Monday night forum and repeating the same nonsense again. Now, if it is Munilal really believed in what it is that he was saying there, don't you think that he would have pressed the matter a little more? So after he made this statement on Sunday morning and Kamala talked about it Monday night, that's the end of the issue. We hear nothing more from them on that. But this was so earth-shattering that we needed to call a press conference to talk about it. We mentioned it once, twice, and that's the end of it. But we call in for public inquiry. Well, there's something else that requires a public inquiry that took place under Rudal Munilal as Minister of Housing, right? That to date, we still don't know how that happened. And I make specific reference to Eden Gardens, which was valued at $52 million by a state valuator, but they paid $175 million, $123 million more than it was valued at, right? This is one of the matters for which a civil suit, I believe, was brought against them. Neither he nor Julian John could give us a proper explanation, other than what he told the public was the reason why they paid more for it was because the land there was, when they decided to buy it, apparently it had water and, well, proper drainage and water connection. So that was worthy of the land going from 52 to 175 million. Now, what I'm about to play for you this morning is something I've played before, but I never get tired of listening to this. To understand the intricacies of that fraud that was perpetrated on the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago. But there was no call for a public inquiry by Munilal on this matter that took place under his stewardship, under the stewardship of Kamala Persad and by extension Julian John, right? A whole 123 million. They won back the 100 million from AV. But this extra 123 million that they paid for the land, we don't want that. UNC supporters not interested in that. No. We're only interested in AV Julian 100 million. But 123 million, which for everybody else, the normal, sane, thinking citizens of this country is more than 100 million. But for them, remember under Kamala-matics, less is more, right? So 100 million is worth more than 123 million. So that's why they won back that 100. But the 123 extra, they didn't want that. So I know we have a lot of new listeners. For some of you all, you would have heard this before. And as I said, I never get tired of listening to it. And I'm sure I've listened to it more times than all of you guys. But we have a number of new listeners who would have joined us since the last time I played this, and also for their benefit, for them to hear it. And I want you all to listen carefully to the granular details of what Afra Raymond describes as a fraud, a significant fraud that was perpetrated on you, the citizens of this country, as a reminder as to why these bastards must never hold public office in this country again, right? Listen to this.
Chartered Surveyor and Managing Director of Raymond and Pair, also the immediate past President of the Joint Consultative Council. His name is Afra Raymond. Good morning to you, sir. How are you? Let's see, we got the microphone hooked up.
Good morning, Rennie, and good morning, listeners. Thank you for inviting me onto the show once again to discuss this very important matter, and it's a burning issue of public corruption and theft of public money. I will say it directly. I'm not going to use any coded language. Maybe I will later on. And what we are dealing with here is a looting of our treasury, and we need to stand up for what is right at all times.
Yeah,
particularly for those people who occupy high office and high positions of responsibility. So this is what we're going to be dealing with in this morning's program. This is a massive, complex fraud involving tens of millions of public money that was spent more than needed to be spent. And pitifully, sadly, that money came out of a portfolio that is intended to provide for the needy people in this country who don't have a proper housing option.
It is interesting that this morning
from the mouths of people who don't have enough to provide for themselves. So this is true stealing, and it deserves the sternest possible treatment. So I'm glad you invited me to discuss it. Thank you.
It is interesting that this morning you take off your gloves, because you were a lot more judicious back in 2013 when you said, well, maybe we're looking at mismanagement here or or the misspending of public funds. It turned out this morning you say gloves are off. Let's just get straight to it. You examined the Calcutta Settlement Land Scheme back in May 9th, 2013, I'm referring to, in which the agency acquired this land. Let me just ask you, first of all, to take me to the beginning of the land purchase, not from where the HDC got involved, but take me back to the original owner, the money that was given him, then taken back, then a different amount paid a little later on. Just lay it out for our listeners this morning.
Yeah. Well, what I want to say, first of all, as a declaration, is that there's a piece of land I'm very familiar with. It's north of Central Park North, and it's on Calcutta Settlement number 2 road, opposite to Madras Trace, which is where there's a Wassa pumping station. It's about 50.5 acres of land, gently undulating land. And I'm familiar with it because I did some work on it before for 4 or 5 businessmen who were the owners of the land. But that was back in about 07 and 06. So this is part of my professional life. Our relationship professionally ended about 07 or 08. Not in a difficult way. I carried the work to a point and they were carrying on with other people. That happens. And in 2010, the individuals formed a company and put the property into the company. So the company purchased the property for 5 million DT. That was on the 3rd of February 2010. They had had a previous agreement going back to about, I think it was 08, in which they had agreed to buy the property from the owner for $17 million. They rescinded that agreement in February of 2010, and they also granted a mortgage to the owner of the property, that was Mr. Diosaran, and that mortgage was for $18.5 million. So right away on the 3rd of February 2010, we have a difficulty. We have a transaction in which A buys the property from B for $5 million. A previous purchase agreement is torn up and agreed to be evaporated between the parties. No problem with that. The third transaction is that B is lending A $18.5 million under an instrument called a mortgage. Now, a mortgage is supposed to be an instrument where you're borrowing money and you're using the property as a security. And the tradition, the custom and practice, and the accepted professional way to do it is that a mortgage is normally for a sum that is less than the value of the property,
yes,
because the lender would want to know that if they're unable to get money and if to sell the property, they can recover their money. In this case, a property that had been sold for $5 million was mortgaged the same day for $18.5 million. So to my mind, and I said so in the formal complaint that I was instrumental in preparing, to my mind it raises an immediate question about the Registrar General's Department and the Stamp Duty Department. Okay, we haven't gotten to the HGC yet, because the HGC is down in 2011.
Yeah, I want to deal with this top part here because it also involves the stamp duty
and
issue.
In 2010, we have what appears to me to be very close to a tax evasion question where stamp duty is concerned, a breach of professional practice where conveyancing is concerned, because you're dealing with somebody preparing a mortgage for a property that in fact was just sold for $5 million. Okay, so it's and the translation of all of that in plain terms is that the property was really sold to the gentlemen, the Eden Park people. They're called Point Lisa Spark Limited. It was really sold to them for a sum of money about $24 or $25 million. That's what it really means. But the amount of money that they presented to the Inland Revenue was 5. So they only paid tax on 5. 18.5 plus the 2 years mortgage at 8.5% comes out about $26 million. Now,
let's just be clear on that. How much they actually paid there? What was it? $340,000? Is that what they actually
taxes?
paid? Yes.
Or $350? 7%.
And it should have been what? From your calculation, it should have been $3 to $4 million.
Let us say it's 30 million. It would have been about $2 million.
$2 million they should have paid. All right. So that's the tax evasion you spoke about. Okay,
yes.
go ahead.
Yes. And then the other thing, of course, is that the other thing, of course, is that going forward, they start to infrastructure the land. So the infrastructure started to be installed in land. That is roads and water and lights and so on, drains and so on. And at that point, the property was placed with 2 real estate agents, really. One was Samco, SAMKO, and the other one was something called Golden Key. And I have the Golden Key advertisement on my website, afroraymond.net. And the Golden Key advertisement in 2011 is showing those properties, those lots advertised at $400,000 a lot. Okay, lots from $400,000 a lot. Now, $400,000 a lot, there were only 264 lots. So $400,000 a lot, even if you multiply 264 by 400,000, you're actually getting a figure that it's really just over 100 million. Okay? You're getting just over $100 million. I think it's $105 million, $106 million. Therefore, the mind is boggling. How could one agree to pay $175 million for a piece of land that altogether, at best, could only have been sold for $106 million.
But it was accepted at two. It was first of all handed to them at $200 million, and they got a discount.
Well, I question that. I question
Yeah, well.
that because I mean, so that's the first. The 2010 to 2011 period is interesting. So they're still dealing with it as a private issue because the three transactions that took place on the 3rd of February 2010 took place prior to the 2010 election, and the gentlemen were going about arranging their affairs commercially to develop the land and put the lots for sale. At some point late in 2011, they came to what you might want to call a bend in the river, to borrow Naipaul's phrase. And that bend in the river came about when the land was offered to HDC. And you see, this is what is interesting, Rennie. The first thing we have to do is to identify when was the land offered to HDC and on what terms. Because the Lyndon Scott valuation, to which there have been several references in the public, at the end of November of 2011, the Lyndon Scott valuation was for $52 million. That valuation was executed sort of in the second half of November 2011. Now, when Mr. Scott came back with his valuation of 52, and Scott is somebody I know, he trained with our firm, I know him, I used to work with him for years. When Mr. Scott came back with that valuation, the next thing we hear on the official record, if you read the press and you follow the thing, the next thing we hear is that the company, Point Lisa Spark Limited, offers the land to the HDC in January of 2012. So 2 months later, they offer the land. Which begs the question, why did the HDC request a valuation from Mr. Scott and from others 2 months before? Because the HDC doesn't have money to fling around like that. Why would they spend a fee that will be in the order of $40,000 to $50,000 of a professional fee just for a piece of land that somebody drove by and saw? I don't think so. I think that land would have been offered to them at some point in October or November of 2011.
Let me just ask you a question.
And we need to find out what was, on what terms was it offered.
Understood. Let me just be clear. So this land stood an oasis, or was there also more land available that the government could use if they wanted to?
Sure, there was plenty of land.
Right in that area?
Yes.
Okay, so just wanted to be clear on that.
So the first, I'll come back to the land question, the supply of land question. So the first thing is that there's an issue around the dates. Scott's valuation is November of 2011. Why was he asked to do a valuation? If in fact the first offer was in January of 2012 for $200 million, and there's another issue you raise, Rennie, that's important, which is the issue about the land supply, and I want to talk about that for a little while, please. And the point is there are two issues to look at here. Looking at the immediate question of where that land is, the land is on Calcutta Settlement Number 2 Road, which links Vancouver to Freeport, and it's a back road, so it's west of the highway and so on. It's a good back road. And the area has an abundance of Caroni land. Caroni was closed in 2004. Therefore, if one stood on that land and looked pretty much in any direction, one would be casting one's eyes on state-owned Caroni land that was disused because the practice of growing sugar had been discontinued. So the burning question is, even if the HEC had resolved to build large-scale housing on disused agricultural land south of the east-west corridor, even if that had been a strategic decision they had taken, why did they need to buy any land, particularly in that area? In fact, a member of the cabinet told me, a former minister of housing and that, a member of the cabinet told me that when Caroni was closed, the decision was taken that they are not going to spend any money for the HCC to buy any land south of the Caroni because there was such an abundant supply of disused land that was now disused in south and central. They're not going to spend any money. And that cabinet decision, that cabinet policy appears to have been reversed or sidelined to allow this transaction to go through. So the policy, that policy as it was told to me, makes sense. in the limited sense of conserving one's cash. There may be other difficulties in terms of consumption of agricultural land and so on, but it makes sense in that sense of conserving cash. It appears to have been disregarded to facilitate this transaction.
The Minister of Housing right there, Minister Munilal, says in criticizing some of the information offered in the civil suit, accused the Minister Young, of not knowing the difference between bush and developed land. Address that, if you will. Now, because I'm just trying to follow exactly what the foundation is. They were doing the infrastructural development, that is true. But even if we put that infrastructural, what kind of costs are we talking about?
Well, I think that's an important question to look at in terms of how we go forward. Whether the land was bush or it was developed land. The land was put to the HGC as developed land. I mean, I'm reliably informed that they had to spend more money doing infrastructure, because I understand the development that's going there in terms of the number of lots and so, it doesn't conform to the design that had been approved before. So in fact, they've changed the design and so on. The point is that we're talking about bush and we're throwing words and so on. The point is that way too much money was paid for that land.
Yeah.
I'll put it simply. At the time when the owners, the private sector owners owned that property, and there was no contemplation, no active contemplation of state involvement, the land was offered by two real estate agents, Samco and the other company I mentioned. And
which is Point Lisa Spark?
Yeah, Point Lisa Spark offered the land for sale. And
Golden Key. Yes.
Golden Key, that's right. Golden Key and Samco offered the property for sale at $400,000 a lot. Now ask me this thing. If you are a private owner and you have land for sale at $400,000 a lot, 264 lots, that if all of them were sold on the same day, which is the best possible outcome, and you collected cash on the same day, the most money you could collect mathematically is 106 million.
Yes.
Now, if you could only collect 106 million, how do you turn around a year later and sell that property to the state? And let's just be clear, for 175 million. Now, 175 million, listeners, is $663,000 per lot. So within a year, land escalated in value from $400,000 to $663,000, which in fact is about 64% increase in land value in 1 year. And I want to say, I tell you, and I want to say to Dr. Munilal, I hope you're listening to this. I want to say to you that long time when I was in primary school, I'm a little older than you, they used to say that the cow jump over the moon. But the way some of these political, nonsensical lyrics are carrying on, a little bit again, and the dish will run away with the spoon.
Hello.
So we are not going to have that stealing and that disregard for good public conduct on either side, because I'm equally hard when it's P&M doing their games. On either side, it is not acceptable. We need better in this country. We are not going to let the dish run away with the spoon with any kind of nonsensical remarks. The fact of the matter is that land could have been purchased for $35 million lawfully if the Land Acquisition Act had been applied.
Yes.
We spent $75 million buying that land, and our public treasury spent 5 times more than we needed to spend buying that land. That is the scale of the theft and the waste. An interesting thing to note, I hope Mrs. Prasad Besesa and Mr. Ramlogan could be listening to this bit together with Dr.
I'm
Munilal.
sure the information will get to them.
I also want to say that it's remarkable that this is the first cabinet, to my knowledge, I'm subject to correction, this is the first cabinet in our history, to my knowledge, where there were 2 senior counsel in the cabinet. 2.
Who would know better?
And they ought to understand
Yes.
the meaning and the application of the Land Acquisition Act. All of this, the only polite way to describe it is that they were seemingly oblivious to the legal options, and the legal option would have been to allow the state to invoke its powers under the Land Acquisition Act in the face of an unreasonable demand from a landowner if land was required for a public purpose. All of that, the learned people in the cabinet, Mr. Ramada, Mr. Anand Ramlogan, SC, Mrs. Kamla Prasad Besesa, SC, Dr. Munilal has a legal training as well. What were you all doing? 60 years of public education to do this? This is a scandal.
The Land Acquisition Act of 1994, which allows the government to move in and take property if they find one that it is not, to go in and take the property for the good of the greater populace, as against it being, if it's unduly asking for too much money from the government. I want to stay with one area there, Afra, because we got to the point of the $52 million that came in from the valuation from Lyndon Scott. However, the HDC did not just take this and walk with it. They had another valuation done, and that is what I want to discuss, because therein lies that question of the $50,000 that is part of the civil suit. So let us talk specifically of what happened. The $52 million was the original estimate given, and how did we get to the 200 being accepted? Who walked in the center there? Who was authorized to go and do a reevaluation of the property, and what happened?
Well, another valuation was commissioned from the Commissioner of Valuations, and the Commissioner of Valuations, for listeners, is the government's valuation officer. So they are the ones who prepare valuations as part of the Ministry of Finance. They have offices through the country. You would have heard of them recently in relation to the property tax that was controversial 2 or 3 months ago.
That's right.
But the Commissioner of Valuations actually prepares valuations and gives land administration and valuation advice to the state, okay? And it appears that a request for a valuation is made in about February of 2012 from the HDC. And when the opinion was eventually received, I think it was in April of 2012, the figure that the Commissioner of Valuations put onto the same land that Mr. Scott valued in November 2011, November 2011, 52 million. The figure that they put was 180 million. And of course, it presents a very stark picture, because everybody listening to this program, even those people who might be my detractors, everybody knows that if you have a property to value and you get a private valuator to value it, and then you get the government valuator to value it, everybody knows the government valuator is always lower.
Yes,
it is always much lower. So who is talking foolishness here? Everybody knows that, except when it comes to Eden Gardens. So you get to Eden Gardens and we find a reversal, and this is where the dish jumps over the spoon, and sometimes Rudal, the cow does jump over the moon. This is exactly where it is. And then, so you're reversing reality and trying to tell me that that is normal. It is not normal.
And it's amazing because for this the great disparity to be presented, and nobody challenged it. It went through the cabinet. It was passed. It's frightening. By the way, listeners, those who are not in Trinidad and Tobago, the Land Acquisition Act of 1994 is not similar to what is called eminent domain. It falls under the same heading. All right, so we have this this person from the land validation area can go in and do this, come back with this figure. The cabinet accepted it. It goes in and they pay $175 million for it.
That's right. That's right. So what is happening here is that we have a situation where the Commissioner of Valuations Office prepares a report, and the figure is 180 million. I know there was an earlier letter in which he attempted to dismiss Mr. Scott's valuation by saying it was grossly undervalued and so on and so on. And I want to put another question out there, because we need to understand what is being told to us. We need to act like we're educated. We need to act like this is our country, this is our country, this is our money. These people, up to and including the Honorable President, Excellency Anthony Carmona, these people are public servants. They are our public servants. They may be highly qualified, they may be highly empowered by the law, but they are our public servants, and they are supposed to do our work. They are supposed to serve our purposes. And we need to put a robust question out there and ask, in relation to this land, how is it that we got to the point that we were accepting a valuation that was virtually 4 times more than the private valuation, and nobody in cabinet? Just imagine that.
You see, that is what I find most amazing.
Just fancy that.
Nobody in cabinet watching the public purse saw this disparity and said stop.
So let us ask the question, and there are difficult questions to be asked, but so be it. If I make some people uncomfortable, so be it. Let us ask the question. What we are dealing with, and I'm going to coin a phrase, I'm going to repeat a phrase I coined during the era of Mr. Patrick Manning with that unfortunate series of things with Mr. Colahart and Udicott and so on. And I'm going to say, what we are dealing with at the highest level of the state, the highest chambers of the state, which is the cabinet, is either a disturbing naivety or a complete lack of rectitude. I'll say it again. What we are dealing with at the highest level of our state, which is our cabinet, is either a disturbing naivety or a complete lack of rectitude. You take your pick.
If you just tune into us.
If you want to play games, pick. You want the left hand or you want the right hand? Which one you're going to pick? Because you can't have it both ways.
My guess is that for Raymond, Chartered Surveyor and Managing Director, Raymond and Per, by the way, in full disclosure, your company did do some work for the HDC at some point, so we just make that very clear.
We work for them, yeah. We work for
right,
them. What's right is right, what's wrong is wrong. Yeah.
The immediate past president of the JCC.
That's
Address
correct.
this question for me, please. The former minister says this issue was taken before the Integrity Commission dealt with, so why are you going back there?
Well, I think that Dr. Munilal is correct in the sense, in the limited sense, that there was a complaint made, I believe, by Dr. Rowley when Dr. Rowley was leader of the opposition, and I was aware of it, and that complaint at that time centered on an allegation or a concern over the possibility of and I don't use the word bribe, but a commission was paid to an official. I forget the amount of money. It wasn't a huge amount of money, but a commission was paid to an official. And Dr. Rowley made an allegation on those lines to the Integrity Commission. It was investigated, and that investigation was closed, and they basically felt that the matter didn't have enough evidence. From what I can remember, they really rejected the allegation on the grounds of not enough evidence. This is an entirely different matter, and to mix the two matters up, because both of them have the word Eden in it. Eden in it is nothing less than mischief for educated people, Dr. Munilal. Dr. Munilal, learned Dr. Munilal. It is mischief. This matter we are discussing this morning is about the theft and the waste of public money in a huge sum, about buying a piece of land for 5 times more than you needed to pay for it, for buying a piece of land in an area where there was abundant public land available, for buying a piece of land on which I'm reliably informed further money had to be spent on infrastructure.
Follow the money is what Minister Young says he's going to do. Yeah. And in following the money, I am just a little uncomfortable. I am optimistic that this is just a door opening, but I'm a little uncomfortable because the only target I see is a $50,000 bribe, alleged bribe, that was paid for this valuation situation. But there's a lot more money involved here, and I hope it does not end singularly. I know on the one hand you called back in 2013 for us to follow through with the tax evasion side of it, because something funny had gone on there, clearly from what you articulated this morning. But I'm hopeful that this is not just a $50,000 issue that we're dealing with, and you get a lot more fish when the net comes in.
Yeah, it would be a real pity if what came out of this, a couple of people have said to me cynically, Rennie, it would be a real pity if all that came out of this was that a relatively medium-level public servant was prosecuted for accepting a payment that he ought not to have accepted. That
Hence
would be
the reason I raised it, yes.
Yeah. And in fact, the real big question is, and I'll tell you what is interesting, Rennie. Let's talk about nowadays we have a phrase that we use about anti-money laundering and know your customer and that sort of thing, and one of the concepts that is alive in all of that is the concept of the ultimate beneficial owner. So something will say something is in a company, somebody will say a property is in a company's name, and this company is selling the property to that company or selling their shares. The question really is, for the investigators and those people who try to clamp down on white-collar crime and tax evasion, the question really is, who is that company? A company is not a company. You see, the whole concept of ultimate beneficial ownership goes to the heart. Who is the biological person or persons who own that company? Who are the beneficiaries?
Let me pause you right there, Afra, because that's a very important point you're making, because part of the problem here is you say, well, if Point Lisa's Park, if in fact, they made an offer, it doesn't matter what happened, the government accepted it. We did our we did our proper thing here. They did not do their due diligence, whatever they accepted the figure. We're a pilot. We have a Pontius Pilate. I mean, we have nothing to do with that. However, as you said, if you go to who are the principals, who are the people involved in that Point Lisa's Park, who are the ultimate beneficiaries of it, then you have a wider net to pull in. Go ahead, please.
And the point I'm trying to make is that, in fact, if you examine the Registrar General's files for Point Lisa's Park Limited, the company had directors, and the directors have been named in the press. The names of the individuals are not really material to this matter, because the fact is the company never issued shares. So under the sort of rubric of how one would trace who owns the company, they had managed to find a way to sidestep the transaction. Another interesting wrinkle to note for listeners is that up until the end of 2014, under our country's anti-money laundering laws, any transaction involving land and property, you had to know who the ultimate beneficial owner was, except, and this is the loophole that was beautiful, except if there was a government department or government company or government agency. At the end of 2014, that loophole was remedied, and that was an important step forward. The other thing is that the point I'm driving at is that we don't know who Point Lisa Spark Limited really was. Were there people in the cabinet who were Point Lisa Spark? Who was Point Lisa Spark? We know who the directors were. We know they owned this piece of very valuable land. There must have been oil or gold or something below there. We know they owned this piece of land. But
unique among all the state land that remained from Caribbean. This particular parcel was special.
Yeah. Who are these people? And this is really one of the questions. So the whole anti-money laundering channel of discussion is very fertile in this question. And the other point is that there was a falling out among the parties, and there was a lawsuit, which in fact allowed us to get a lot of information.
Falling out of the parties, you mean the Point Lisa's company?
Those people fell out.
Okay.
Yeah. The actual private individuals who were doing the business together. And
this falling out happened after the land was purchased?
No, it was before. It started to rumble, and then it kind of spilled over.
Okay,
so they filed a lawsuit in 2012. They filed a lawsuit in 2012.
Okay.
What is interesting is that they are, at the Point Lisa's people are actually benefiting from the transaction. I mean, I think some amounts of money have been traced and so on, but the real beneficiaries have not actually been identified. An immense profit was made, as the press has said, over 100 million. I think it's over nearly 140 million dollars in profit was made.
It is one of the reasons I asked you earlier, as a surveyor yourself, the infrastructural work that was done there. What kind of dollar figure you think that would have amounted to?
Well, the lawsuit figures we saw. Let's talk about what we can identify.
Let's just bear with me. I'll tell you where I'm going with this in a second.
Sure.
Yes.
The lawsuit figures that we saw, and the lawsuit was filed, and I got a copy of the filing. The lawsuit figures that we saw identified a figure of 29 million. Whether that was actually spent, I don't know, but the person, the contractor, was claiming that he had spent 29 million, and in fact there had been some correspondence where that figure had been agreed.
And listeners, the reason I asked that question is because if the private valuator said 52 million, and then you put 29 million on that, you end up at about 81. How you arrive at 175? Because this is the money that we're talking about. That if I quote something you said back in 2013, you said the HDC purchase must be reversed and the responsible parties investigated and prosecuted as required by law. So I'm trying to identify what are we going after. We're going after the difference of that money when we try to follow the money here.
Sure. Let me just say to you, I will reverse your arithmetic, and I would say to you the $52 million valuation Mr. Scott did.
Yes.
Included the $29 million of work that was done in 2010 and 2011.
Okay.
Mr. Scott prepared his opinion at the end of 2011.
At the end of it.
So that $29 million, we're just saying there was a figure that was agreed between the parties, but there's a true figure.
Was included,
we don't know.
Yeah.
Was included. It was not 29 plus 52.
Gotcha.
And I started off saying that the land in February of 2010 would have been about 25 plus 29, so you're getting about 50, you see?
Okay,
that's where we're
It's
going.
going to be really interesting. What you expecting to get out for us as taxpayers, for the country? What are you expecting to see come out of this civil suit, this civil case?
Well, I think it's yet another interesting development in how we move ahead with the country. I'm happy to see it because there was a particular level of involvement by myself and my colleagues. And I'll talk about that in a second. But I'm a little bit cautious. My optimism is cautious because we are still seeing the specter of governments prosecuting previous governments. And I think when we really make progress will be when we see governments prosecuting, quotation marks, their own people. Close quotation marks. We're not there yet. So the question, are we there yet? And the answer is we're not there yet. We're taking steps on the road.
There may be another question. The other question to that is, which comes first, the chicken or the egg? Do you deal with what was there before?
Yes.
Or because you've got one thing in front of you right now.
Sure. I'm not.
And if this is indeed a precedent,
yes,
that's being said, because part of the argument, bear with me for a second.
Sure.
Part of the argument raised is this. This government, not this one, but any government, any present government anywhere in the world does not want to prosecute the previous government for fear that when they lose the election, then the table is turned.
Yes.
So that is the sort of wink, wink, wink that goes on. However, if the precedent is set here, then it means no sacred cows.
Yes.
So I think this is very very important because yes, it is going to help us to expect.
Yes.
Those who do. We're not saying that anybody did anything wrong. We're just raising questions about what obtains. And I'm saying if something comes out of this, it is going to be a wonderful shot across the bow.
Yes. Well, I think that you asked me what I can expect. And the other thing I would mention here is that this is a civil lawsuit. It's not a prosecution, and there are no arrests as far as I'm aware. And it's a civil lawsuit, and the reason for doing that, as far as I can tell, is that the civil lawsuit has a lower threshold of evidence and so on, and therefore there's a higher chance of success if one is seeking to inflict some kind of a penalty or recompense for wrongdoing in office.
The natural extension of that would be, what do you see coming out of this, and do you see anybody being prosecuted as a result of what is unearthed from this?
Yes, I see prosecutions in the future. I certainly would like to see prosecutions, because as far as I'm concerned, it's on the books, it's inescapable on the stamp duty charge. There are other issues of breach of trust and fiduciary duty and so on that emerge, rooted in the civil lawsuit. But really, that stamp duty evasion is a crime. Okay? That stamp duty evasion carries heavy penalties, including mandatory disbarring for the attorneys involved, including 5 times the amount of stamp duty that you evaded has to be paid as penalty for the state. And that money is also given as a reward to the organization that made the report, which was the organization I was president of at the time, JCC. And you see, there's progress, there's backwards and forwards all the time. So this is really a terrible moment to realize that, in fact, we have this degree of stealing and waste taking place in our country, and of course it's riding alongside with a little companion that is seeking to sort of distract us and call it different names and so on and so on. But what is really interesting is that at that time we made a report. We made apart from my newspaper articles in 2013, it was first mentioned in the budget debate for the 2013 budget at the end of 2012. Dr. Rowley and Mr. Arawi mentioned Eden Gardens, and they mentioned concerns over it and so on in the budget debate. Then I delved into it deeply in the first half of 2013. And the JCC, which I was president of at the time, made a formal report on the 22nd of July 2015. And that was important for 2 reasons. Number one was that the people who had the company, Point Lisa Spark Limited, because I was monitoring this in the background, as they say in Trinidad, Jumbie and them. The people who had that company had actually applied to the company registrar to have the company wound up. They said the company is not trading anymore. There was a single asset, we've sold it, and we'd like to apply to have this company wound up. The company registrar, which was her duty, said, yes, okay, we can wind it up in X period of time. And she put a notice on their file. They said this company has been applied to be wound up by this date. And our report, the formal report JCC made in this matter, was filed on the same day the company was to be wound up. And I wrote to the registrar and I said to her, Madam,
hold your head.
I'm aware that an application has been made to do this thing. I'm aware of giving conditional approval. But in fact, it is a formal report has now been made to these. We made reports to 6 law enforcement agencies. A report has now been made to these 6 agencies, and no doubt the matter will be under investigation. Please hold your hand. She held a hand. So here we are. So the first significant thing is that the persons involved in that company tried to wind it up and put it in a great big hole and plant a tree on top of it and so on.
You put together a company for a single transaction.
Yeah, a single
it
asset.
is done and then we're gone.
Yeah, that's a normal thing in commercial world.
Oh, that's normal, huh?
Yeah,
okay.
it's normal. But the second point is this, is that there was an important moment in terms of professional development, because we had a professional association making a report in writing to law enforcement about one of its members. And that was a significant milestone in this country. I don't believe the Law Association has ever done it. I don't believe the accountants have ever done it. I don't believe the bankers have ever done it. I certainly don't believe the doctors have ever done it. The JCC did it. And colleagues, I think it was a milestone. We have contributed to us getting to this point. And this is important.
For Raymond, my guest this morning, first guest chartered surveyor and managing director of Raymond and Pear Limited. We're talking about the $175 million paid by the HDC for a property that he argues could have gone for, $32 million initially. However, even when there was a private valuator, he said $52 million, including infrastructural work. It was eventually sold for $175 million. I'm curious about this in conclusion. Looking at the names here who are named in the suit, are you comfortable with this? The 9 defendants, well, 10 of them, Jolene John, who is the former head of the HGC, Henkel Lau, former HGC chairman, Greg Davis, former deputy HGC chairman, Peter Ford, project specialist, the former commissioner of valuation, Ronald Harry Lau, Point Lisa Spark Limited, Anthony Sampath, Everell Ross, interesting name, and Patrick Soonting. Are you happy that all parties are covered in this? Save and accept until we get to who the principals behind PAP was.
They have more people to put on that list. I don't know whether they will ever put them, because we live in a country that has all kinds of compromises and so on. I don't know if they will ever get on the list, but we need to put more people on, because, as I said in my earlier remarks, there were attorneys, prominent, well-educated, experienced attorneys, who were involved in preparing all this. This could not have happened without the professional assistance and guidance of attorneys. And another point that emerges in this is that, given that the property was was conveyed in February of 2010 for $5 million, which was probably 1/5 of its true value. Given that the property was conveyed for that figure, and that conveyance was at a false statement of consideration. Given that, there's learning in law that represents a defect in title. So, quite apart from any question of dollars and cents, why is the HEC buying property with defective title?
Why are they buying it? Yes.
Yeah. You see, and it speaks to the heart of the question, really, because we're talking about we sort of taking apart the HEC transaction, and there's another way to look at it, and the other way to look at it is to remove HEC from the picture, and this makes it even more interesting. What we call Plan B. Let's suppose Point Lisa Spark Limited decided that they weren't going to go ahead with their own development. They were trying to sell these lots. It wasn't working out the way they wanted to, and they wanted to try something different and to sell the whole thing to one person. So we're talking about Point Lisa Spark owners. They're coming out of the game and they're selling the land to somebody else. And let's suppose that Plan A, which was the HGC, didn't work for whatever reason. It didn't work. Who else was going to buy that land? And how much money would they have paid? Would Mr. Jack Warner have bought it?
And that's why it's so important that you said we want to find out if you put it up at $400,000 a lot, how many you sold? Because it's going to make the point as to whether anybody else would have bought it at the real price, at the price that's probably acceptable as against the inflated one that you presented.
Exactly.
Yes.
Would Mr. Jack Warner have bought it? Would Mr. Dupree have bought it? Would Mr. Lockjack have bought it? The tycoons in the society, would they have gone to Couva and paid $150 million, $160 million, $140 for that land? And you need to contemplate that when you're preparing a valuation in that sort of situation. You don't just listen to the one client. What you're examining is the market. What is the market for this land? Who would buy this land? What would be their considerations as a rational investor? And that's how you prepare the valuation.
The views of my guests are for Raymond, not necessarily of this station, but it is in his capacity. I just want to just close one part here. I did mention Everell Ross as a very interesting name. He is actually the officer at the Commissioner of the Valuation Office who did the valuation, valuing the land at $180 million. He was added in after the initial thing of 9 people, and I wondered if that was to make sure we have something inside of there to bind this, as we do with putting flour with fish to bind it together. I wonder if that was the reason for that, but I'm up.
Hailing from Rocky Point, Clarendon, Jamaica, Colvin George Scott, a.k.a. Coco T, began his recording career in 1974. One of the most versatile and down-to-earth reggae superstars, Coco T is a champion of the needy. On Saturday, 26th of November, Queens Park, Savannah, the Kingdom of Consciousness welcomes the King, King Coco T.
Holy Mount Zion, I'm coming home to you.
Coco T, Broadcasting live at Kings of the Earth. Coco T.
Rastaman, no work with the EEA.
This is going to be a sold-out event, so get your tickets now. Exclusively at advertised outlets or online at islandetickets.com. Visit all our social media platforms, TikTok, Facebook, and Instagram for more info. Keywords, Kings of the Earth Concert.
Want to furnish your home in style? Stylish Furniture makes this possible. Shop using our affordable layaway options to purchase any of our modern sectionals, dining, living room, or bedroom sets, and receive a dinner voucher for two at Atelier's Restaurant and Lounge. For further information, contact us at 652-2542, 652-2688, and 790-1202. You can also visit any of our branches located at 101 Crackness Village, Princestown, and 51 Rushwood Street in San Fernando. Stylish Furniture, for the style in you.
91.9 is counting down 91 days of Christmas. Yes, 91 days of Christmas. It's karaoke, prizes to be won, giveaways, it's the 91 days of Christmas on the street. 919 FM.
I could sing a good serenade. Oh, it's Christmas.
Join Pastor Kelvin Heinerine and friends for The Way, The Truth, The Life Radio Ministry, a Church of God ministry, live on the street 919 FM from 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. This and every Sunday on the street 919 FM. Jesus said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No man cometh to the Father except through me. John chapter 14, verse 6. For further information, contact 686-3845, 349-5178, or 342-7303.
Share the live. Share the live. The Street 919 FM on Facebook and Instagram. Share the live. Iowa George on Instagram. Share the live. Iowa TV and Street TV on YouTube. Share the live. The Street 919 FM.
Welcome back. Thank you for staying locked to the Street 919 FM. Just give me 1 second. Let me just come back on screen. I don't know what's going on there. Okay, I don't know what is this. Right. Yeah, so thank you for staying locked to the Street 919 FM. A lot to take in from that interview there. For some of you, may be hearing it for a second or third time. Some of you, it's the first time that you're hearing it. Nevertheless, no call by Munilal for any public inquiry into that matter, and his name was mentioned several times in less than favorable circumstances in that interview that we just heard there between Afra Raymond, former head of the JCC, principal of Raymond and Pear, which is one of the foremost valuation companies in Trinidad and Tobago, speaking to you there about Eden Gardens, valued at $52 million and sold or purchased by the state, the HGC, for $175 million, with no proper explanation as to why that was so. With allegations of tax evasion and fraud. Yeah? But the head of the cabinet at that time, Kamala Prasad Bisesa, senior counsel, the self-given, and also the Attorney General at that time, self-given, SC, and the other members of cabinet who were lawyers and who would have had probably some experience in conveyancing and preparing documents. So nothing wrong with paying $175 million for a piece of land valued at 52. 342-008-146-6539. Folks, let's keep it tight because we don't have much time and we want to get as many calls as we can. So if we could keep it at 3 minutes, that would be greatly appreciated. Let's see who we have first. Hello.
Good morning to you, sir, Mr. Dominic.
Yes, sir.
How are you going, sir?
I am very good.
Well, it's okay. It's not my intention to board you in any way, so I'm going to get straight to the point to the reason why I called. One, in relation to that interview that you just played here, let me explain to you what's supposed to go on this. Now, the guy who was making all the different allegations and all these different things based on the fact that the amount of money that was paid, he could go ahead and stand on the basis of wastage. But you see to come out in the public domain and make a statement to say that he can't prove that none of the money that was paid went into Modilal or any one of them fellas in them pocket. So that is a red flag they want them. And to put that information out in the public domain, what it is he's doing there is to make the general public believe that Modilal them is corrupt when he can't prove such thing. And I find
hold on. Hence the reason he said that he reported the matter to 6 different law enforcement agencies for their investigation. Not 1, not 2, 6 different law enforcement agencies. And so for 7 years now, we want to know what's going on with that. Right? Gary was the commissioner of police. He said he was closing all gates before the 2020 election. What happened with this investigation?
Okay, well, fine. We could go ahead and question all that, but that still doesn't say that the money went into Modilal them pocket, and that is my point. And what I'm saying to Mr. Dominic here, the host of the program who was interviewing him, he should have allowed him to withdraw that statement one time. As I say, you could go ahead and stand on the basis of wastage, but the theft, that is a total different thing. And I was not going to ask the question, how come the PNM government for 7 years now and the Caribbean cruise after that matter? I can't answer that question, they have to answer. But I am saying, you can't come out in the public domain and state that without being able to prove that. What is he doing there is just wilding up the tribe to make the country believe that the UNC was corrupt at that time. That is not the case. I know defending the plan, the right thing is the right thing. But moving on from that, Dominic, I heard you said something last week concerning the Nelson and Anna Ramlogan matter here. You said that the information that was what Nelson presented to the state, right? That they could use that information to prosecute the matter without the appearance of Nelson in Trinidad. Is that what I hear you say?
I did not say that.
Well, it's okay. I just wanted to clear that. Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you. I would have pointed out Section 15C of the Evidence Act makes it pellucidly clear as to the circumstances under which the court would be willing to accept evidence in absentia of the witness. And refusing to testify because you say people owe you money is not one of the grounds on which the courts would allow the DPP to present your evidence with you without you being there. So pull up the Evidence Act, Google it, and check Section 15C, and you will see the list of circumstances under which the court would have allowed the DPP to present that evidence without Mr. Nelson. Jenny.
Hi, good afternoon, Dominic.
Hi.
91.9. Good afternoon to our party group 23 and the whole crew. I can't remember people's names, so unless I get them a nickname. So everybody, so they can't say I didn't mention them to the whole Tobago club because different groupings that have, Because at the end of the day, everybody gravitates to what they like. Hello?
Yeah, Jen, go ahead.
Oh, yeah. Everybody gravitates to what they like, but as always, as we say, we have 10 fingers on our hand, all have a different fingerprint, but they all work together for the common good, and that's what everybody is doing at different levels. Nobody don't have to try to convince anybody that the UNC is corrupt. They all would have said it, namely McCandless Dagger deceased. I never heard they contradicted what he said. Abdullah would have said it. I never hear he gave reaction protocol letter. Mr. Roger would have said it, and he didn't get anything either. So nobody has to convince anybody that UNC is corrupt. They won't just say that. Mr. Afra Raymond would have also looked into the whole Invaders Bay situation under the PP government and selling a couple of parcels of land to some developers. So I don't know if it was under price or whatever the process. And they would have taken that to court. They would have won under the Freedom of Information Act that Bo Tiwari, who was the Minister of Planning at that time, to release the documents for them. He has refused, in my mind, since then to now. I don't know how he hasn't been held in contempt. Because had it been me or you being instructed by the court to do something and we didn't do it, we will be held in contempt. So when I hear this thing about Eden Gardens and what he's saying now, I intend to lean on his side because of the track record he would have had in treating with the Invaders Bay. And again, the UNC has a practice, it appears, of not doing things in the interest of Trinidad and Tobago and in the interest of what is lawful in this country. when I look at how the whole invader base situation was done, those lands down there where they had settled out of the guava farmers, and all those come to land and their behavior when it comes to land. And recently now is trying to prevent the government from developing state land to houses for citizens who need houses, and looking at it as if it's something wrong is being done. So anything that comes to land and UNC and all that, I watch it with a pinch of salt. And I tend to err on the side with Mr. Afro Raymond, based again, as I say, on the invaders this situation, where both Ferrari to this day has not done what the court instructed him to do, so that he could get that document on the Freedom Information Act in how those lands were valued, how they were given out, and that kind of thing when it comes to contracts. So government has a blessing, and again, people, if you want this type of information to reach the ground so that we can know what it is, so we can arm ourselves so that we'll be able to make an informed decision whenever any election is called. Dominic Romain is the man for the job, social media officer. And yes, he has a platform, but he's not only just on radio, he also on social media, and he has other avenues to get the information, the facts. So because he says, facts are stubborn things. I'll go to communication safely.
Thank you, Jenny. And it's interesting that Afro Raymond also had issues with Sandals as well. And when he was raising those issues, the UNC was quoting him liberally. They had full confidence in Afro Raymond's opinion. But with respect to this matter, 52 million, pay 175 million. How many houses we could have built for that extra 123 million? How many houses could I build? All right. Hello, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir.
My social media officer of the PNM. Good afternoon, sir. And to my financial guru, good afternoon. Good afternoon to Sister Jenny, guru, my male guru, and everybody. You know one thing Mr. Afro Raymond said there? Because this is about the third time I heard that word. Hear what Mr. Afro Raymond said to us. I hope a simple public servant doesn't get tied up in this matter and drawn before the court. That's all?
That's right.
So the first caller, a simple public servant was drawn before the court and had to pay and up in prison. That's all? Already. Right, young man? So we just wait to see how this thing continues to unfold. Nobody claiming, nobody guilty, you know. If a man was drawn before the court and already went to jail already, if I'm not mistaken on this matter already, a young man, public servant in one of those ministries. What ministry that was again?
Housing.
Oh, right. No, but that fella come from a ministry that has to do the surveying for the housing, if I'm not mistaken.
That probably fall under planning.
Right? The young man already went to court on the Eden matter, the Eden Garden matter already. He had to go to court and answer. For how come the matter moved from 50,000 or how much thousand, if I'm not mistaken. So this matter is already before the court. If I'm not dying, why is he Jolene John? I keep saying Jolene John. Unigal has matters to answer before the court. But this thing already. So then nobody is making us pull. Ask yourself why the citizens in 2015 voted them out. Simple enough. Ask yourself, they had 29 seats. If they were doing so good and everybody was so satisfied, if we just showing allegations of corruption, why are they outside? I didn't have a man leave here with 4 big water treatment plant at $400 million. I wonder, Dominic, you have an arbitration matter coming up for the San Fernando Highway. If I'm not mistaken, sometime I see the court put it off for sometime in this month or next week.
I wasn't aware. I'll check on it.
The 800 and something million that we had to get. I think now my guy ruling is supposed to either come up sometime this week coming in. Guys would leave me with 2 no partner. They say no highway, no byway. And the same highway that the protest and Kubal Singh went on a hunger strike for how long in town. When they done, they come down and march down the Nochi, Jackwana and Munilal and say highway. So I had enough of them. 29 seats, we try all out. Give these people power and give them the most 29 ever. And what they did? They don't know Jackwana again, they don't know. I don't know who coming up. They're looking to see if I'm waiting. What you could be the right fly, you know. Dominic, I'm going to enjoy it, my brother.
You too, sir. Hello, good afternoon.
Hi, Dominic.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon.
The first caller, he called himself crime fighter. And people in the PNM, who defend the PNM on the radio, calling him crime fighter. That's an oxymoron, you know why? Because the political party that he supports, inventing crime, then dealing with crime, so how he could be crime fighter. And I want to say, because he called on another radio station and says this government, hey, the Prince Nelson, right, to have them testify against another government.
Yes.
Right? And I find now when Marshall them should have taken that and expose them to the government. Because I sure he didn't have his citizenship as yet. Right? I don't think a government in any country should allow people like he to chastise the government like that. That is wrong. Right? I sure, and he is a well-known person in Nova. That man always coming and do that kind of thing. So I find they should get him and talk to him or do some kind of thing because he making some serious allegations. And this is not the first time he's on this. I listen to him. We used to call him irregular and
yes.
kind of crap. Right? They cut him up and put him in the spirit. But I find Marshall then should do something. Right? And because he didn't have his must just have residence. If he have that. And he's a brave person. But some people start talking that kind of crap. My mother and from there. Or he is, I don't know, a crime fighter. And he's supporting a party that's doing crime in Trinidad, boy. Curse the whole Caribbean. You see that fellas British? Them is not African, you know. Them is local like African. Okay, Dominic, I'll be voting for you.
Thank you, sir. Hello, good afternoon.
Good afternoon to you, Dominic.
Brian.
Good afternoon to your listeners and callers of 91.9. Dominic, you know what is startling about this, and I want to answer your first caller. Dominic, this started from day one, since 2010, when these people now got in office. And there is a trail. I want to tell you first caller, there is a trail, and that trail can be identified with the right investigators. Because it first started off as $5 million, and it bounced up to 175. Now, forget the 52. It's what it started at first. You understand? $5 million. And that bounced all the way up to 150. Somebody had to sign the check. I want to tell you first call that somebody had to approve that money. That money is not in somebody's back pocket. It has to come from a bank. Somebody has to approve it.
Only cabinet could approve that amount of money.
Huh?
Only the cabinet could approve that kind of expenditure.
Exactly. So there's a trail, sir. There is a trail. But you see, in this kind of issue, as Afro Raymond indicated, and it's important to listen to him, it's not the third or fourth time I heard that as well, is that there are certain people, signatories who would have signed off legally to all of these trails of money back and forth, and the stamp duties and so on. You understand? In those days, I think the maximum was about $85 or $90,000, something like that, for a lot of land. Some I can't remember exactly what the figure was in 2010. But there has to be a trail, and there has to be a stamp duty, and it has to go through certain signatories. You understand? But it just goes through the level of corruption up to the extent where a government official, imagine he valued the land at $180 million. You could imagine that? And as Afro Raymond indicated, no evaluator, government evaluator will ever evaluate land higher than a private evaluator. Never. You understand? But you see, they wanted to get it up as high as they possibly could. And the last person to do that would have been the government evaluator. You understand? And this is the issue in this country. That look at how high it goes. Look at how many people, look at how many attorneys. You understand? You set up a company, you open up a company just to get this thing off the ground. Fine, no problem with that. But look at what happens in between. And as soon as you get the right figure, you close it down. And this is the problem we have in Trinidad and Tobago. And when this other government was in power, how many other pieces of land? Look at what happened with the highway to Point 14. When they stopped it just after Debe Penal. And people were getting, families were getting millions of dollars for land that was just raw bush.
5 people in the same house all paid
In the same
compensated
house,
for the same
Dominic.
property.
You understand? Forest. Dominic, if you go down there, forest. It's trace in the back there, Dominic. You understand? But you see, these things now, you have to have good investigators and people who know how to uncover these things. You can't have ordinary people coming to do that. And these things take a lot of time. But one day, Dominic, one day, we'll see. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Brian. Hello, good afternoon.
Yeah, good afternoon, Mr. Romain.
Mr. Chance.
Great to hear. Great to hear that we're hearing the social media elect here. We're looking for him. We're looking for him to be the social media officer because he's unraveling a number of issues that we have to chew on this afternoon. And I like the topic you've touched on, corruption. That is a very important topic, Mr. Romain, and the public, the people listening to this. At the last World Anti-Corruption Summit, I want you to hear that, people listen carefully. The last World Anti-Corruption Summit, corruption, that's what we're talking about. It was identified that countries all over the world lose over $3 trillion in bribery alone. That is bribery alone. And trillions of other dollars in corruption. So countries felt that they needed to put acts and laws together to help to mitigate and to treat with corruption. What has happened in Trinidad and Tobago? Huh? You know who was there at that conference at the World Anti-Corruption Summit? The Honorable Dr. Keith Christopher Rowley. He was put in office in 2015, and he was there on the 12th of May, 2016, attending the World Anti-Corruption Summit. Can anybody point to me any anti-corruption summit that the then Prime Minister, Kamla Persad-Bissessar, attended? I've done the research. Not one in the Caribbean, in the world. None. That is a measure of her commitment to dealing with corruption. And let me tell you, let me give you the bills that the government brought here in this country, in Trinidad and Tobago, that was dealing with corruption, money laundering, and downright thieving, tax evasion. Hear them. I want you to listen well, Factor. Remember that? That is where the world was trying to treat with corruption. Global Forum. Yes, the world was trying to deal with it. You ever hear about the Revenue Authority? You know what about? That's about people who are trying to evade tax. People who hide in their business so they wouldn't pay tax. Corruption. What about beneficial ownership? People who put in somebody else's name funking for the land, but it's them own the land, so they don't want to pay tax. They call it beneficial ownership. And what about property tax? Right now, the Attorney General has told the people of Trinidad and Tobago that they nearly completed the digitization of all the properties in legal affairs. You know this? They're going to be working to weed out corruption because a lot of people have false deeds in this country. Corruption at the highest. But what have they done? The UNC have supported none of those. Let me say it again. You know what the government had to do? The government had to water it down to pass it. Every one of those bills that dealing with corruption, money laundering, tax evasion, and downright thieving. Because when that money is lost, if we lose the old age pensioners, opportunities for jobs, opportunities in the education system, when we lose that money from the treasury, we lose. And corruption wipes out a lot of it. And they have not supported. They have to water them down. The Revenue Authority, let me close by telling you that is a serious bill. The government had to water it down. But let me tell you, the countries of the Caribbean that have Revenue Authority, and Kamla Persad-Bissessar and the UNC they're not supporting it. Barbados, Guyana, Jamaica, they have Revenue Authorities. And since they've had the Revenue Authority, they have shown where they have received much more revenue. Not more taxes, but they just bring all those people who thief in the money and protecting the state so they can't thief much money. Let me tell you, those in the world who have established Revenue Authority to stop thieving and corruption. That's one of the things with the Revenue Authority, to stop thieving and corruption. I'm giving you some. Singapore. You know about Singapore? Where people, they don't make joke, United Kingdom, South Africa, Canada, Kenya, Uganda, and I don't have enough time to give you the rest. significant countries of the world have introduced revenue authority. And a significant reason for it is to stop tax evasion, corruption, and thieving. And in Trinidad and Tobago, we have an opposition that is not supporting it at all. And the leader has not attended one anti-corruption summit in the world. So I stand with Dominic this morning on this business that we have a perception that the opposition in Trinidad and Tobago is turning a blind eye to corruption and white-collar crime. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chance. Hello,
Dominic,
good afternoon.
my brother. Good afternoon, Dominic, my brother.
Good afternoon, sir.
Now? I really hope you win. That's what you are going up for. Because we've been complaining about the PNM and the thing for some couple of years well.
Yes.
And I think an individual like you do such a lovely work. And I think you will build back the PNM if you get that position. I don't know if everybody have the clue and the understanding, they will vote for you. You have my vote, for sure. But Senator Chance, I agree with everything you say. But the problem we have in Trinidad and Tobago, such an opposition we have in Trinidad and Tobago, that opposition is not wanting things to be white-collar crime and corruption and things to stop it. Because they have a lot of things to hide. You understand? We make a mistake by putting an individual to be commissioner of police. And deep down inside all of our heart, the incident with the London thing and the investigation was going on in London in the thing and the information that they give out about Trinidad and Tobago. And we saw that case cover up and destroy. Why? What we are looking at in Trinidad and Tobago, that corruption, do corruption and you get free. That is what they're telling the youth. You understand? The opposition in this country don't care about behavior, the way. Look at a man like Annie Roberts. He's back in the Senate. He's back giving advice to our them. But what's the behavior of him when he was there? So what is the opposition leader is sending? What message is sending for the youth and them at Trinidad and Tobago? When we look at them, this is not our opposition. We pay money for the opposition to take a look at our business and look at the crime bill. For instance, that thing where they want us to keep people if they're committing one crime or they're concealed. That was a very good thing. No, you can get bailed outside, you can kill the witness, and the matter done. It's happening. I know about situation what happened. Just like that. But we give them a free pass. The media give them a free pass. Did you ask Kamala when they have a meeting, did you ask you all the hard questions like, how did us be drilling Dr. Rowley? You drill that Dr. Rowley as we going through the don't do Kamala not. And that's why they're doing what they're doing. And we keep saying it, but the media don't care about us, the public. The media don't care what we think. Although they work for us, but they don't care about us. White collar crime been going on. Don't Shagaramas. When we had a march from Shagarama up in Port of Spain when you want to sell it at $1. It's real crime this opposition leader do. And then she's in front of her face once again. Put up herself to be Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago. But what I can assure you, if all don't want to hear them, please don't put that woman back there. Because all it will be on a downfall that all it will not believe. Because if all if she do a heart set work, then I saw for all the children to come. Because all they might get away, you know. Or what about all the kids them to come? And that is what all they have to be thinking about when all they making decisions. And get the leaders who will really take care of Trinidad and Tobago forward and get things done in the correct manner. And then we could jump out of ourselves and say, hooray, But Dominic, I am praying for you to win that because I know once you win it, I know you are a foolish, I know mess around guy. You do your research, do your work, and I know you'll get good thing coming out of you. So I'm praying for you, my brother. I know Jane is here too. So Jane, you know you're going to put a strong brother there. Have a blessed day.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for the vote of confidence. Hello, good afternoon.
Hey, Dominic, good afternoon.
Yes, sir, greetings.
Yes, I call in from Sandy Grady to wish our MP, Roger Monroe, Councillor Paul Mongolas, all the best with this flooding situation we had up here. Try to done. And it's some people I must remember because when I was under my circumstances in that major flood, Mr. Chan, Ms. Cummins, Dane Francois, because them is people who reach out to me. And this flood we had recently come straight back. Well, we was fortunate in our area that not to get much water. A little water in the yard, but not in the house. So it bring back memories. And these are people who assist me. So I'll always be grateful to them. But Dominic, you know what I really call for, boy? I hope Trinidadians watching America politics, what they did to the Republicans, that the people reject Donald Trump and the misinformation. And I hope that Trinidadians will reject the UNC and the misinformation and pack of lies that have been spreading to the public. I only hope that Trinidadians is watching the American politics and see that what America stand up for, they stand up for democracy was at stake, and that is happening in Trinidad and Tobago. If they do not put back Dr. Rowley, our country could be under some serious consequences, like in 2010, because when you hear a prime minister talking about Guy Griffith and she will repeal any legislation passed to protect illegal guns on the street, we got to be very careful in Trinidad and Tobago what will happen. So Dominic, you know the finances of them is very important to parties because they pour the money for commercials but you see the individual people who have to vote, them is the one who is important because it's showing in America that the people went out there and especially young people went out and said they're against, right, what Trump stands for, and their rights, they are protecting abortion rights and different affirmative rights. And if Trinidadians could do that and go out there and vote, we will protect Trinidad and Tobago. Dominic, have a good day, and I wish you best of luck in the social media posts, because they have to. We want somebody there to combat them with that misinformation. Okay? Take care.
Thank you, sir. Right, so let me just say good afternoon to the Golden Girls of San Fernando East, to Helen and Madeline. Good afternoon to you guys. It was a pleasure meeting you all yesterday. And all of the other folks that I met as I did a little bit of campaigning yesterday evening at the San Fernando East constituency, had their 50th conference. So that was a time was had. So, and also to Party Group 23, as Jenny mentioned earlier. Good afternoon to Darian Marcel and the folks of Party Group 23. Hello, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mr. Dominic. So
good afternoon, sir.
Peace and blessings, you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Nice. And let me first say morning, Mr. Jenny, Mr. Chance, Baltaria, each and everyone, Trinidad and Tobago. Good afternoon. And let me say greetings and blessings to Ms. Choma Wilson and the upliftment of his son, Mr. Dominic.
Yes, Kareem Marcel, congrats to him.
Yes. Let me send love and greetings to them. Because Dominic, we have brilliance among we here. We have brilliance among us, and you is one, and all you coming in by steps, and we need all you very seriously in this land, Mr. Dominic. So I wish you all the best in coming soon. I don't pray for you, you're sure, Mr. Dominic.
Thank you.
You're sure, you know? Because I don't talk to my father concerning the position you're looking to take to rescue Trinidad and Tobago. Thank you kindly, Mr. Dominic. And Mr. Dominic, you know, while listening to the interview, is when the Mr. say, 30 years of education, Mr. Dominic. Yeah, 30 years of education to produce pirates in Trinidad and Tobago. That's what the education was about, Mr. Dominic. Because when people can ask, if you see any wrongdoing, will you take any step? And then get chosen to be a part of the government. If a person could ask if the blimp could see through your wall, Mr. Dominic, and sell it for $50,000 US, Mr. Dominic. If somebody could tell you who cares, who the hell cares, that is a government you're looking to put to govern Trinidad and Tobago, Mr. Dominic?
Not at all.
So Mr. Dominic, and I'm saying again, we problem in Trinidad and Tobago, Mr. Dominic, is the media in Trinidad and Tobago and the Law Association in Trinidad and Tobago dealing with crime, white-collar crime, theft. Anyhow you deal, Mr. Dominic, that is the problem Trinidad and Tobago have. That is why certain people can't end up. Because Carrera should have been clean already, you know, Mr. Dominic. Carrera should have been clean already, waiting on you tenants to pay the rent when the month comes, Mr. Dominic. But we have a problem with the Law Association in Trinidad and Tobago and the media. Mr. Dominic, it's raining right now, so you have a safe day for me, please. And take care of yourself for me, please. Thank you. And all is well when the time comes. So you keep up the good works, Mr. Dominic. Thanks again for your time.
Thank you, sir.
Good afternoon to you. Hello?
Hello?
Yeah, Dominic, yeah, no?
Uh-huh.
Okay, I am the first caller that called your program just now, right? I am the person that is referred to as crime fighter from Mova Lavante, right? Right. Now, I want to ask you a question. Now, we're on radio, so you can afford the time of playing, it's not a problem. When I called your program, was I disrespectful in any way?
No, I don't think anybody accused you of being disrespectful.
All right, did I say anything wrong, make any allegation against anybody? Did I say anything wrong?
Well, you referenced the allegations made would have been on comments that you would have made on other programs, not this one.
Okay, now, the Ella, I don't know if he called in from Mova or from Lavantil, but he called and said that I call another program and say that the government of Trinidad and Tobago pay Mr. Nelson to come to testify against Ramlog and Mr. Rambin. Now, you see that what I called yesterday? He lied. I did not say that. What I did say, I said because with the amount of bacchanal that was going on, I strongly believe the possibility could exist that might happen. That is what I say. I never say that the government pay Mr. Nelson to come to testify against these two fellas. But nonetheless, let me explain something, Dominic, right? Now, a lot of elderly people is like this. When their son, their grandson, and you know what other family members they have, they don't talk the way how I does talk. I'm not saying that there is bad people. There are plenty of wonderful young people who I know in Trinidad that's going good at me. Some of them not even tell me that they hear me and they're wrong them about all kind of different things because they appreciate what I do. Okay, now I didn't born in Trinidad and Tobago, but me didn't enter this country illegal. I'm living in this country illegal. So in case that fella don't tell them, put him on notice one time. In case you don't know, so let me just tell him. But I want to say this one thing. I strongly believe, based on the contribution I just make on radio, because I left Trinidad and Tobago, this country has been very good to me. And as long as I live, I will always do my best to seek Trinidad interests, whether people like it or not. Not because your son or your grandson or other family members you have don't talk like me. That gives you the right to take this Sunday morning to come to criticize me. Big man, you don't know me. And I'll let you know plain. I don't know if your wife cook or if she ain't cooking or wherever it is, wherever it is. Leave me alone. You know who you're messing with. And this kind of talk where you just talk there, but the state should investigate me and talk to me. You just better be careful that why. You better be careful. Whatever supposed to happen, it doesn't happen to you. Right? So I just putting you on notice. You don't know me, you be you, let me be me. If I see it fit to seek Trinidad interest, that is my business.
So thank you. I think we got the point.
All right, thanks.
Yeah. Hello, good afternoon.
Morning, good afternoon, Dominic.
Hi, Jamal.
Dominic, man lane tracks. Dominic, God's your life. You know you have my food, okay?
Thank you.
God bless you, my darling. You are one of my son. You know that, Dominic?
Yes.
So your surety, God's willing, you have my vote 100%. Go brave in Jesus' name. Put Jesus in front and you right behind him, and everything will be added onto you. Okay, Dominic?
Thank
God
you.
bless him, son. God bless you.
Thank you, Jamal. Hello, good afternoon. All right, we lost that one. 342-0081-466-5391. See who we have here. Hello, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir. I just wonder how some people has come to get in and 3-4 times and talk things that really doesn't make sense. But anyhow, Dominic,
yes,
considering this issue that you highlighted there, if there's some person right now presently serving a jail sentence for readjusting the cost of the land?
I'm not sure. I think that may be so, but I'm not certain.
Because I remember they saying that they hold the gentleman who it is increased it, and it's so sad to see that thing went by $100 million, and all he take was $50,000 to increase it, and now he's really now making the jail.
Very unfortunate.
But this is what is the problem in this country. You see what not the last one, but the gentleman before, when he said that there's but I still in when he said that the problems starting from in the judiciary and the media, and very, 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 very correct, because something has to be wrong when you can have somebody get 2 years for breaking the mother glasses in an argument, and then some people, because they look in a different way, get a suspended sentence for possession of an illegal firearm, get a suspended sentence for breaking and entering and stealing things for them to go online. Something has to be wrong with the judiciary in this country, and I have been crying and bawling and screaming for the longest while. Can we get a way that the Privy Council can oversee our judiciary so that when we don't have cases like Amy Adamanturo go on and is held accountable for making these missteps and misdeeds in judgments, and we won't have a case like Shamba when it is a person, and the Law Association of England stated that the laws and the jurisprudence that was used to give an injunction and a stay of execution by on the entire police service was erroneous and wrong. Things was done concerning that. We have to be able to hold the judiciary accountable. And I think the Privy Council, since especially the opposition, should agree, because everything that is wanted to the Privy Council. So maybe we need to get that in place in this country. And maybe a lot of things that we are seeing going wrong might straighten out. Because when you could have 350,000 cases backlog and no plan to fix it, we are in a disaster, sir. Remember, that might be part of the reason crime is going awry in this country, because they realize there is no justice. Because you know what it is said? Justice delayed is justice denied. The gentleman mentioned about America. But you see, maybe America people, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. And this is the problem. We will remain fools because we just keep getting fooled twice, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times. How long will we continue to make the same mistakes and expect different results, Dominic? And while I agree, I'm glad that you're going up for the position, and I am hoping that you are successful. But I am also hoping even more that the leader of the party remains intact, because no matter what you intend to do, and anybody else who intends to do good comes along and wins, if the leader is wrong, all fall down. So, people, do the right thing. Come out and do the right thing. Because I just keep saying, all the time we see people get elected and then they have questions to the name. Why we want to have people with questions to the name and elect them? I demand mention a few. We just had, if Mr. Muniral, and that is the thing, the fella talk about it, that he it insinuating that Muniral thief. Does he know that Mr. Muniral is charged for I don't know how to write allegations of corruption and misbehavior in public office in regards to what happened in EMBD? Does he realize that? Does he realize that same Mr. Muniral who he's trying to defend there has a lot of questions to answer? But you see again, the media is hide that. Nobody don't talk about that, right? They don't put it on the front page. But if Dr. Rowley sneezes, like front page, he dying. Come on, people. Only get smart now. How long we going to remain foolish? Dominic, you have a nice day. Stay safe.
Thank you, sir. Hello, good afternoon.
Good afternoon to you, my dear Dominic.
Hi, Carol.
Dominic, my dear, you sitting with the mic in your hand, and you are a responsible person, excellent person, and so. But you see, when people call in to make threats, everything, you could pull the plug on them, cut them off. You think you could go in the other? They say that they're the most popular station in Trinidad and Tobago. They tell you about poppycock, and they just cut you off. They don't allow you to go on and make threats against people. But anyway, I ain't called for that. I know you try to be fair and give everybody a chance, but anytime you see you cross a particular line, because everybody have the freedom to express themselves. But when you cross in a particular line, any kind of threats you're making, the host supposed to know what to do. Right? Anyway, where you are concerned for that post, you are I have been saying that for the longest while. You are the man for the job. Reason being, your sense of being articulate, being able to do research, and the thing that you could manage your time properly, good time management. Because some of the people they're pushing have a lot on their plate to do. And they would not be able to do the kind of research like you do. And it's about time management. As I said, kudos, how do you do it? What's the secret, Dominic? Managing your time, boy.
Going to bed at 2 o'clock in the morning.
Just wild fast or something, so?
Going to bed at 1 and 2 in the morning.
Oh gosh. That's now the other half, the better half, will have to complain, But I know you'll be able to manage it. And, a happy lady is a happy, but it's a happy wife is a happy life, right? Yes. I know you'll make her happy. Anyway, so, Dominic, you're able to manage your time well. I know you make a great sacrifice, as you're telling us here, going to bed late. But you know what? Your love for Trinidad and Tobago cannot be questioned. You're like me and others. You can't see wrong thing going on. People being duped and turn a blind eye to it. We all have to live here. And even if people should go outside, and whether you're out there, but you have your eyes on the mother country and your home country, and when things go wrong, it will bring pain in your heart. So hence the reason I know you do what you do, for the love of Trinidad and Tobago. So we cannot allow foolishness, corruption, trying to dupe people. And you say anytime they talk about the poor man and the small man, what does our Bible tell us? I know you're a Christian person like myself. Jesus told us the poor will always be with us. We will always have poor people. But all the people who say they're fighting for poor people is to seek their own interest. They care about no poor people. That's just to fool the people, because they figure when you talk to particular people in a particular way, they won't understand. You don't read papers. They're not international citizens. They don't know what's going on outside, how something outside will affect in Trinidad and Tobago and the Caribbean and so on. They don't read anything. They don't know anything. So you could tell them anything. That song is good in the ears. But in truth and in fact, you're laughing inside because your objective is about you. It's about I and I. You understand? And you do what you do because you love Trinidad and Tobago. So I would like you to get that position. Everybody else who's going up, let this young man be the man. And the reason being, all the other people have other responsibilities. And people have been crying out that the PNM don't have a proper PR and so on and social media and all that. You're getting a young man now who's going to really make everybody proud and be able to debunk the lies, the innuendos, the half-truths and what have you. He'll be able to peel away at all of that and debunk it. So don't let this opportunity pass, people. He is the man for the job. So blessings to you, my dear. I see you there already, you know.
Yes.
And I see you going further.
Thank you.
So all the best, Dominic boy.
Thank you, Carol.
Yeah.
So, folks, we're out of time, but not other things to say. I see the line still going, but unfortunately, we don't have the time. So, join Sharon and Bruce in the morning for another edition of Titans of Democracy. And God's willing, I will be back with you on Tuesday. So, remember, campaign is on for internal elections. Decisions have been made in 2020. You were called on to make the right choice, and you made the right choice by putting back the PNM. So I trust that you will make the right choice again on November 26th, 27th, and December 4th. Just putting it out there. You know, remember, yours truly, social media officer. Hey, so